Now, in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, we read that the God of this age, that's Satan, has blinded the minds of unbelievers so they cannot see the light of the gospel that displays the glory of Christ, who is the image of God. For what we preach is not ourselves, but Jesus Christ as Lord, and ourselves as your servants for Jesus' sake. For God who said, and he's obviously talking about Genesis, let light shine out of darkness, made his light shine in our hearts to give us the light of the knowledge of God's glory displayed in the face of Christ. So, believe it or not, when you get saved and you are born again, you become a new creation. And God says, let there be light in your heart. Jesus Christ comes in and you have spiritual light within you. Jesus is dwelling inside of us. It's an amazing thing. We are no longer in spiritual darkness when we get saved. We transfer from the kingdom of darkness. The moment you are born again, Jesus comes in and the light goes on, and now you are part of the kingdom of light. Now listen, Christians. So we have spiritual light. People don't know the Lord are in spiritual darkness. Verse 7, but we have this treasure. What's the treasure that we have in us? Jesus, the light. It's a treasure in us, okay? We have this treasure in us in jars of clay. Now, what are the jars of clay? It's our bodies, okay? Are compared to jars of clay, to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. Now, I have to tell you that what the Apostle Paul is playing off of is a story in the Old Testament on Gideon. I don't know if you remember back in Judges, Gideon has 300 men, and God gives instructions they're going to fight this huge army. And he tells his 300 men, God whittles it down to 300 men, to take a torch, a light, and to put the light down into a clay jar so that the light is in darkness inside the clay jar. So it's hidden. And then the 300 men circled around the enemy, okay? So Gideon and the 100 men with him, there's three parties, three different 100 men each. Gideon and the 100 men with him reached the edge of the camp at the beginning of the middle watch. This is nighttime, just after they had changed the guard. They blew their trumpets and they broke the jars that were in their hands. That's because the light, the torch, was inside the jar. So it looked dark until they broke the jar. And then all of a sudden, there was the light, okay? The three companies blew the trumpets, smashed the jars, grasping the torches in their left hands and holding in their right hands the trumpets they were to blow. They shouted, a sword for the Lord and for Gideon. And while each man held his position around the camp, all the Midianites ran, crying out as they fled, and they all killed each other, okay? So God's people, they don't even have to do anything. It's just shining the light, blowing the trumpet, and saying, a sword for the Lord for Gideon, okay? Sword for the Lord. So the Apostle Paul is kind of playing off of that. Verse 7, but we have this treasure, this light, in our bodies to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. Now, verse 8 starts about how our jars are being broken. Verse 8, we are hard pressed on every side, but we're not crushed. We're perplexed, but we're not in despair. We're persecuted, but we're not abandoned. We're struck down, but we're not destroyed. We always carry around in our body the death of Jesus. We're being broken so that the life of Jesus may also be revealed in our body. For we who are alive are always being given over to death for Jesus' sake, so that his life may also be revealed in our mortal body. So listen, every person is being attacked by Satan. Satan is mean, brutal, and rotten. Even when he promises people, hey, look, you serve me, and I'll make you rich and famous and whatever. Satan always loves to make deals like that. Do not listen to him. He's a liar. He's a liar from the beginning. I am so amazed how young people, middle-aged people listen to Satan and make it sell your soul because you think Satan is going to take care of you. He's the biggest liar there is. Satan does not love anyone. He is going to destroy you. Now, inside of every person is either darkness or light. You're either a believer or you're not a believer. You're either full of light and truth and grace, Jesus, or you're full of Satan and evil and rottenness. And you know what's inside people because when they are being broken by the devil, what is inside a person will come out. What's inside a person will come out. So for instance, I've been reading, Wednesday night for our prayer meeting, we had a woman come from Ukraine. And she was sharing how horrible the Russian soldiers are dealing with people. They're breaking the Geneva, all the countries sign this Geneva, what do they call it? Convention, Geneva Convention of War. The first thing is that the Russians have been stealing all the kids, 300,000, it's estimated. And they're taking them Russia and adopting them to the Russian people. That's against the Geneva Convention, to take kids from people and to sell them off, adopting them. They are also engaged in sexually tormenting tens of thousands of people they've captured. That's against the Geneva Convention. You'll even notice with Israel and Hamas that forget any rules that anyone has signed ahead of time. People are vicious. When they're under stress and their clay jar is breaking, you get to see what's inside of a person. So you're at your job. First one there, you're hard pressed. You're having a tough time at your job. You're being hard pressed by the boss. Maybe it's your marriage. Maybe it's dealing with kids. You're being hard pressed in the situation. It's emotionally breaking you. It's psychologically breaking you. What's inside of you comes out. And if you're in darkness, what comes out is you swear and curse and you break up and you take that job. And when you're broken, and everyone goes under this breaking. If you can't see the world is breaking, then you see what comes out. But for you as believers, when you're hard pressed, they should see the light of Jesus coming out of your life. They should see Jesus, a peace, a calmness, the love of the Lord. You're not rude. You're not you don't take revenge. Your mouth is under the control of the Holy Spirit. You're not swearing and cursing at the boss and your fellow workers or your spouse or your kids. Jesus comes out when you're being hard pressed. When you are perplexed. When you are perplexed. When other people are perplexed that don't know the Lord, oh man, they get desperate. They do stupid stuff. They're foolish. But when you're perplexed, And people see you with your perplexity, with your job, your family, your situation, your health, whatever. They see there's a calmness. You're not in despair. You're like, I've got Jesus. If I got Jesus in me, I've got a hope. He's going to guide me. He's going to lead me. So people see Jesus in you. In fact, this is why God allows Satan why we're handed over to death. It's God. This is how people of the world are going to see the difference with Christians. They're going to see the light of the Lord, because Satan is being used by God to break the jars, and darkness and evil will be revealed in some people. But in your life, Jesus is coming, shining forth, because you have a treasure inside you. You are struck down. Satan attacks you with an illness, with a sickness, with disaster. He strikes you down. He's the enemy. But you're like, I'm not abandoned. I've got Jesus. Jesus is with me. Doesn't matter what the Lord does or what the Lord allows. Doesn't matter what Satan does. This is like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. You can throw us in the furnace. We're not denying Jesus. Yeah, it may be the end, but we're not abandoned. Jesus is with us. Whether we die or live, Jesus is with us.